Jesus, I crave to know you, just to know you will satisfy my soul.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 116. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on this episode as we continue our Advent daily reading. Today we will be in Isaiah, continuing actually in chapter 11, verse 10 through 16, as we make our way through the anticipation of the coming Messiah, both what we see in the Old and the New Testament. Before we jump right in, though, I do want to take just a second to ask you. There's quite a few different listeners spread all throughout the world, really. I think by my last count, it was something like 50 countries. It just blows my mind how God has spread this message through this podcast just around the world. And so, with that being said, I acknowledge the impact of prayer, the power that prayer can have, the effect that it can have, the place that it has in Scripture, that we're always to pray. And so, in light of that, and this broad listener base, I would actually be zealous for your prayers. If you could remember me in your moments of prayer, intercession with the Lord. I have something here going on locally, some gatherings that we're having, and right now it's still kind of in the small phase, but I'm eager to, I guess, build awareness of it so that more people have an opportunity to participate in what I believe God is wanting to do and eager to do. So this has been going on now for almost a year. And so if I could just have you maybe pray for the meetings, that God would just manifest himself powerfully in our midst, that our eyes would be opened to his presence and his intention, that Christ would be center and just magnified in the moment. There's prayer, there's worship, there's the word, and just that he would blow our minds, and that people would come, they would encounter God in these times of gathering, and that people would leave with the phrase that God was truly among us. That's my heart's desire, and people will be unable to leave the way they came in. And so lots of things going on internally, and what my hopes this place will become, but in the time being, until God moves things around and causes things to be, it is still in its early infancy. So if you would be in prayers for me on that, and all of those who may come to be a part of it, help with it, give of their time and their talents, and whatever it looks like, just may God lead us, lead me in this process. So I am zealous for that. I appreciate it in advance. So today we are in day 5 of this Advent reading, and it's Isaiah chapter 11, verses 10 through 16. And it says, "In that day the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the surviving remnant of his people from Assyria, from Lower Egypt, from Upper Egypt, from Cush, from Elam, from Babylonia, from Hamath, and from the islands of the Mediterranean. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the 4 quarters of the earth. Ephraim's jealousy will vanish, and Judah's enemies will be destroyed. Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, nor Judah hostile toward Ephraim. They will swoop down on the slopes of Philistia to the west. Together they will plunder the people to the east. They will subdue Edom and Moab, and the Ammonites will be subject to them. The Lord will dry up the gulf of the Egyptian sea. With a scorching wind he will sweep his hand over the Euphrates River. He will break it up into 7 streams, so that anyone can cross over in sandals. There will be a highway for the remnant of his people that is left from Assyria, as there was for Israel when they came up from Egypt. You know, there's a lot really going on here. There's a lot of actual historical prophecies. So these are not just relegated to these from our day future perspective, but there's truly in here contextual historical prophecies that have been fulfilled. But one thing I really want to mention or bring out is this place where he addresses his resting place will be glorious. I think we find that in verse 10. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. As we think of ourselves, those who belong to God by way of Jesus, those believers have become a resting place for God. We have become the temple of God. And as temples of the living God, we are now, if you will, kind of traveling synagogues in this contextual place. Now, it's not to lessen or diminish the importance of, local congregant gathering together as a community of believers in faith and practicing and exercising the gathering. That doesn't diminish that, but it is important to remember that as believers we're not isolated to a singular building. We are now the abiding place of God, the resting place. I'm reminded of when Solomon finished all of the preparations for the temple, and the abiding presence of God, the glory of God filled the temple, so much so that the priests could not minister to God. And as Jesus gave of himself and permitted it to be so that we then could become this abiding place of God, where fellowship and communion have been restored back from the place of the once fellowshipping garden is now restored, and man and woman and boy and girl can again be conjoined to the presence, the Spirit of God. And so what an encouragement that is to think of ourselves as a resting place for God. Now, that is only applicable to those who belong to God by way of Jesus Christ, by way of faith in him. And if you have yet to take that step of faith and feel a urgency in your inner depth that you need to give of yourself to Jesus so that you can become reunited with the Father. That's the only way to do this. And so I would encourage you to take that step, to make that leap of faith, and because it's only under the one name, Jesus, the Christ, by which man, woman, boy, girl can be saved. So I just want to thank you for taking the time with me on this episode. Thank you again in advance for your prayers. If you would remember me and all that's going on there in these gatherings. So I pray that God bless you, that He give you dreams and visions, and that God's power would be manifested through you in your obedience and willingness to walk in faithful service of His will and desire. And until the next time, God bless.
I would trade a million lifetimes for